Good morning, everybody. Without doubt, I have the best job in all of Fintech land today. My name is Charles Potts. I'm Senior Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer for the ICBA. And I have the pleasure of moderating and hosting the session today in our deep dives on the small business economy. Today, we're going to be talking to a group of panelists on how Fintech is helping community banks help community businesses. With me today is Jill Castilla, President and CEO of Citizens Bank of Edmond, Eric Sprink, President and CEO of Coastal Bank in Everett, Washington, and Lindsay Lockhart, co-founder and Chief of Staff at Neocova in St. Louis. Before we begin, I do have to make sure that the ground rules are very clear given the event of the last 24 hours. There will be no flies. If flies are anywhere around anybody on this broadcast, please point it out to us so that we can get rid of the flies. With that in mind, first I'd like to turn it over to you, Jill, and share with our audience a little background on you, your role, Citizens Bank's background and history, and then I'd like to go around and make sure we do that with everybody first, okay?
Sounds great. Just real quickly, I'm Jill Castilla, President and CEO of Citizens Bank of Edmond. We're a traditional community bank located in suburban Oklahoma City. We've been around for 120 years on the same intersection. One location, we consolidated all our branch locations about 7 years ago. We're committed to being here for another 100 years. So we're very focused on innovation, ensuring that we can scale and be relevant for the next century.
Excellent. And Eric, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and a little background on you and your bank.
You got it. And good morning to everybody. And Coastal is definitely humbled to be with this panelist group of experts, as well as thank you to Fintech South for inviting us. Super excited to be here. Coastal is $1.7 billion in assets, 15 branches, very traditional community bank, focused on small business and mid-market clients. About 90% of our assets are small business loans. In addition to that, we have two other divisions at the bank, which will be relevant for today. Is one, we do banking as a service. We provide the back-end support for fintechs across the country. And then our third division, we recently announced our digital bank formation, where we signed a partnership with Google to go direct to consumers ourselves. But happy to be here.
Excellent. Good morning, Eric. I know you're the earliest riser for us today, and I appreciate you being here. Speaking of cool fintechs, who better to represent than Lindsay Lockhart? And Lindsay, good morning, and I'd love to hear a little bit of background.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Charlie. Hello, Jill. Hello, Eric. Have the likelihood of, or the benefit, I should say, of not being too early here. But so again, Lindsay Lockhart, co-founder and chief of staff at Neocova. So Neocova, for those who are not familiar, we are a St. Louis-based technology provider. We provide fully secure AI and cloud-first banking products. That includes core, analytics, fraud, regulatory compliance, exclusively for community banks and credit unions. And really our goal is to enable these financial institutions nationwide to efficiently adopt and evolve in this new world that we live in, so before and post-COVID. So what we offer is unified data management, a phased product technology implementation, and really just seamless integration. So we can really free these community financial institutions from all the frustrations that many of us have felt with our legacy core providers, and really move forward. So we want community banks to succeed so Main Street can succeed.
Excellent. Thank you. You're speaking to my heart and the heart that I know of the panelists here. So this is wonderful to have all of you, and I truly appreciate everybody being here this early morning. For many of you, one of the things that I think would be useful is as we think about this session and think about small business and how community banks are helping small businesses. I think it would be very notable if we kind of wind the clock back to January 1, because obviously this year has created a lot of interesting opportunities. And one of the things I think would be worth noting for our audience is when you woke up on January 1 and you thought about your strategic plans and you thought about your budget and initiatives that you were undertaking on behalf of your market, your bank, the communities you serve, and small businesses. What were some of the initiatives that were keenly important to your organization before the world changed in early March? And Jill, I'll start with you because I think it's probably a good foundational conversation to help our audience understand where we started from and where we're going.
Yeah, we were really focused on increasing accessibility for our small businesses. So we were prepared to file for our patent for a 24/7 basically manned bank office where our small businesses can come in and do large deposits, large withdrawals, change orders, and get rolled coin with their phone. And so we had put up that pilot. It had been working well, and we were preparing to file our patent ultimately in February. Also, the resources. We have a co-working space that we provide to our small business customers with a podcast studio, and we were building out what kind of resources and programming in that space, as well as doing an expansion of our Vault 405, so now encompassing over 20,000 square feet. So that was in the plans at that point in time. And then also ensuring that we were reaching our underserved communities. The Federal Reserve had a study for Black female entrepreneurs that they released, sorry, my hair is kind of flipping out, that they released a year and a half ago that we were really involved in, and it provided us accessibility to some of the underserved areas and demographics in Oklahoma City. So we were developing our strategies on how to ensure that all the area that we serve has equitable access to credit, that we're able to really provide the capital and liquidity needs to all of the small businesses in our community.
Was the branch consolidation activities somewhat of a precursor to that? Was that very intentional as you move towards that strategy?
Well, all our branches were located within 2 miles of our main bank location. So when we're thinking about sustainability of the bank, it just didn't make a lot of sense. One of the branches was located only a block away from our main bank facility. And so we were able to convert that building of almost 40,000 square feet, retain our drive-through features there, but then provide access to small businesses. It's created a lot of density. We serve consistently over 100 businesses in that space. And so we really were looking for opportunities to scale that and providing more resources to the small business community.
And Lindsay, from the perspective of Neocova, with your platform and your strategy and your partnerships out there, what was 2020 supposed to look like?
Sure, absolutely. I know we all had our hopes and dreams. We're still achieving them and working very hard to keep moving forward. But prior to COVID, it really goes back to our mission and why we exist. And first and foremost is allow banks and credit unions to better serve their customers by identifying their needs. So looking at your customers, looking at the insights, the analytics, how can you better serve your customers? Secondly, our goal was to continue moving down our pipeline with our products. And our goal is to drive down the cost for our institution so they can dedicate those resources to things that Jill just mentioned, to serving our customers better, being able to, minimize the burden on the back office, be able to handle all of the compliance and regulatory functions, and really just think about making our institutions agile, quick, and efficient. Little did we know what March would bring and how valuable an ability for community bank or credit union to be agile and quick and flexible to maneuver. And then third, and very, very important, and I know we'll highlight this later on in our talk, is securing our customers' data, making sure it is protected from any type of cyber attack, phishing, fraud, you name it. So those were the 3 areas of goals for us for 2020. And they have, with COVID, certainly continued to be the forefront for us here at Neocova.
And Eric, you have a very close relationship, obviously, with Neocova, and an interesting strategy there as well. Was the beginning part of the year a very clear set of goals and expectations for you guys as well?
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and it's kind of fun to think about back to January. It seems like years ago now. And keep in mind, the very first COVID reported case in the country was Mill Creek, which was about 2 miles from our headquarters. And my chairman is the chairman of the local hospital, so we kind of knew what was going on in the emergency room January 18th. So, but yeah, in December, so I'll back it up a month when we did the board strategic planning and budgeting for the 3 to 5 year period. First off, I love what Jill's talking about, staying independent for another 100 years. I love what Neokova's talking about, enabling banks to remain independent for a long time. And so Coastal takes that mentality as well. So when we went public in 2018, it was with the mindset of remaining independent 15, 20, 25 years into the future. So COVID is a blip on that radar when you think about long-term and diversifying your income streams and innovating. Really, all of this happened before. Specifically to your question, we love Neocova. We've been partnered with them now, probably going on 18 months, maybe not that long, 14, 15 months. But we were challenging Neocova to help us build some infrastructure that we needed to be able to deliver services digitally to digital communities. And we really needed their expertise. We interviewed everybody we could think of in the space. And really what Lindsay and her team and Sultan brought to the market was a cloud-based product with innovation stemming from their AI ML engineers behind the scene, working with the Google engineers, which obviously made sense later to a lot of people when we signed our Google partnership in August. Right, and helping us even hire some PhDs for Coastal staff that could translate what Neocova is doing to the regulators, et cetera. But all of that infrastructure build was allow us to add to our product offerings to small business customers going forward, because they're demanding faster payments, they're demanding diversification of payments, the different types of lending products, buy now, pay later type products. They're demanding speed to the market. They're demanding a lot of stuff from us as a bank. And keep in mind, I'm in the market of Amazon, Microsoft, Expedia. Google has 25,000 employees in the greater MSA. So we're in this market where our businesses are very sophisticated and they're really pushing us. So we did a lot of soul searching 3 years ago when we decided to remain independent. And the board hasn't deviated from that strategy, but it's been top down, right? It starts with our board, it starts with our capital stack, it starts with our long-term planning, working with your regulators, finding the right partners like Neocova as an example, and then starting to go to market, which was what's supposed to be this year, but that's a different story.
So, which leads to the disruptor of all disruptors, right? A pandemic, a breakout, something completely unexpected. Jill, how did you, your bank, and obviously your community first react to this, and give us a sense of what was in place, and then what were some of the immediate things that you guys could do to address obviously the challenges of the COVID crisis?
So when we first saw COVID coming towards America's shores, we contacted every single by phone business customer that we had to assess what their anticipated cash flow situation may be. And that led to an in-person meeting with one of an event venue that was very proactive in anticipating concerns there. And we had a meeting with them, all socially distanced. Before that was cool. And they were telling us about some of the things that they needed. And it allowed us to get right into the conversation in DC with our delegation, and ultimately Senate, the Small Business Committee, the Banking Committee, to discuss these are specific needs, and this is what we would love to see happen, and that we thought community banks would be best situated to be able to disperse funding for assistance. And so right at the beginning of the Paycheck Protection Program and Main Street lending, we were really in those conversations to try to convey issues as well as opportunities. And then as CARES was being developed, conveying access issues that were anticipated that ended up coming to fruition, but we were kind of blowing the whistle on all this. We had whiteboards everywhere in the bank, and we were already using social media quite extensively, and my cell phone number is out there for our customers to use. We were able to send 95% of our staff home almost immediately and without skipping a beat, implemented a chat feature in our website ASAP. And then we were able to quickly move into opening that bank in a box pilot that we did in downtown Oklahoma City. We rushed and implemented it in downtown Edmond. We deployed an ITM quickly, just anticipating that we would have higher cash needs, advocated for the elimination of some compliance regulations so we can allow for free flow of funds between savings accounts and checking accounts, knowing that there would be greater reliance upon digital. We went to 24/7 support on our phones and have continued to do that. It was something will be permanent. And then immediately started curbside services when we closed our lobby and our staff was able to source. We had some restaurant buzzers and kind of a waiting program in place, and we were able to leverage that capacity to be able to schedule online appointments for curbside services, so we could serve customers continuously, but do that outside in a safer fashion. And so it's this great rush to action. At the same time, we had visited ICBA Fintech and had come to know Tesla, one of the participants in that accelerator program, and they offered us free technology when Paycheck Protection Program came out, and they ended up being just a great partner for us. We were using, again, social media, hearing the concerns then nationally of what was happening with the small business community, trying to serve customers and non-customers, honestly, throughout the nation. When PPP was launched, trying to be a matchmaker, we ended up being a matchmaker between small businesses and community banks throughout the nation, over 1,000 businesses. And through that, we were connected with Mark Cuban when stimulus checks came out to try to figure out a way to get stimulus checks availability, that money be before the 2-week mailing period, so that we could really help assure our customers that they were going to have the liquidity to put food on the table for their families. So then we came up with an overdraft program through the collaboration with Mr. Cuban, who then leveraged that his reach to be able to challenge other banks to implement something similar. And we ended up interacting with over 400 banks, implementing that, using technology, but using really social media as leverage for communication, both to our customers as well as our industry and advocacy in DC. And that led to a discussion, an email from Cuban about, what about forgiveness? And forgiveness is so complicated. And so then we launched PPP.bank in collaboration with Tesla, who we knew had a heart for helping community banks and small businesses during this really challenging time. And so it was a guided tool for forgiveness that they launched in 10 days. We don't take any profit from that, and we don't collecting data from it. So it was just this 2-month period. It seems like it was 4 years, but those initial phases, and we were just firing at all cylinders. We had no relationship with Mark Cuban before, and just the accessibility of digital channels allow for like-minded individuals and companies to come together really quickly for calls of action from a technology support standpoint, as well as just the accessibility of information and resources.
So a couple of things. First of all, for those of us here in Atlanta, and especially our TAG organization and Fintech South organization, when we saw you Chick-fil-A-ing it out there, that made it all very, very warm here in Atlanta.
That's awesome. Yeah, our staff all had the ear things. They were working our drive-through, redirecting to ITMs. I mean, we have a lot of Chick-fil-A former team members on our team, so they really helped guide us through that.
That is, you're getting a lot of shout outs in Atlanta.
We love Chick-fil-A in Oklahoma too.
There you go. Well, it also points out, and I think, Lindsay, this is probably one of the areas where I think it's important to highlight, as Jill mentioned, the tools and technologies and capabilities that are available to really help the community banks help the businesses they serve. What has Neocova seen as obviously then the CARES Act is a big piece of it, but all the other aspects of now what we've had to deal with. Where do you see this evolution taking place over a very short period of time?
No, absolutely. And you're right. So, I mean, we've been talking, I know all the panelists here, we participate in numerous events and webinars prior to COVID, and a recurring topic, theme, or keynote has always been around your digital transformation, your digital journey, and what that looks like. And we've all been taking bites, of the apple, proverbial apple here. But when COVID happened, it accelerated that timeline. So if I channel our Chief Revenue Officer, Ray Shannonday, he stated this really well in a recent tertiary interview. He said, it's an amazing time to be thinking about technology and community banks, because during this crisis, what we have seen are community financial institutions rise to the occasion. Jill listed a litany of things that her organization has done to support and be there for their customers. We know what Eric's team is looking at technology and what they can do to create efficiencies and better serve, being close to ground zero essentially and seeing what was about to happen. So if you look at this unique window of time for us and the heavy lifting and the heroic acts of our community banks, this is additional fodder for us to realize that technology has a human element and a human impact. So this is more than simply upgrading your technology or back office for your bank. This allows you to be there for your customers. So when you look at products specifically, what comes to mind, I always start with data and data unification and the insights that you're able to derive by going through that process. I was talking to a friend a few nights ago, and we were reminiscing not only about pre-COVID times, but also being a childhood. And I don't know if any of you remember her watching what would come up before the 10 o'clock news, and the announcer would be like, "It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are?" And as a child, that all made me laugh, because I'm like, of course, I'm right here. Of course, my parents know where where your kids are. But I got to thinking. I'm thinking about our banking community, and I challenge everyone listening here, do you know where your data lives? Do you know where your data is at? And if you're able to harvest that and, we make it a, unified single source, there's a wealth of information for you to provide tailor options and services for your small businesses and for your community, so you can make it through this challenging time, because we're all feeling it in different varieties. So, for me, it's starting with data. It's looking at those insights. It's moving on to your BSA, AML, looking at ways to create efficiency from a compliance and regulatory standpoint, so you can, again, to Jill's point, put your bankers to do banking as they're intended to do, and that's to serve their customers.
Well, and that's a perfect segue to Eric as well, because I know with a lot of your plans going back to 2018 and rolling up through the end of last year, what were some of the immediacy actions you and your bank could take, Eric, around this technology stack and this evolution and this focus that you guys had in the marketplace to really address some of the business needs that came about?
Yeah, so it was interesting having a front row seat to kind of see it unfolding. I remember, again, my chairman is chairman of the hospital here locally, and I apologize. We're testing our fire alarms today, so perfect timing for the emergency. But we had our chairman come to our executive meeting, my team meeting on January 20th-ish, somewhere in that time frame, and he looked at the group and said, "Go buy all the toilet paper, no kidding, and all this hand sanitizers and masks that we can find for the staffs." And we were like, okay, what's this mean? What are we talking about here? So it was really a shock to the system when we laid it out there and said, spend what you need to spend, go buy masks, go buy gloves, go buy sanitizer. Long story short, we were very fortunate. All of our 15 branches have drive-ups, so we were able to react and still serve the customers and do it in a safe way with our employees. But the really cool part as we started evolving through this crisis was, is there a way we can still do functioning business and look at this as an opportunity for the bank? And obviously, as we lean into PPP, which was March, the first discussions were middle to late March with the Treasury and the SBA saying, hey, we're going to roll this out. We're going to send this money out. We had already shut our branches down by that point, but we knew we had to be able to talk to our customers. Luckily, luck is being prepared when the opportunity arises. We too had integrated a digital delivery of the PPP solution, as well as we made the commitment that at the time when we made the commitment, we didn't know how the bank would be incentivized by the Treasury to do this, but we just said we have to get this money into our community. And we were able to deploy the entire bank. Really, everybody from the board to myself was inputting PPP loans, directly talking to customers late into the hours, but also we deployed some technology that allowed us to communicate directly with the E-Trans system. And so we could preload the data and let the computer input it into E-Tran and kind of expedite our process. Long story short, so we were able to do about $450 million in loans on a $1.1 billion balance sheet. So as a percent of our assets as of 3/31, we were quite successful. So about 40% of our balance sheet we were able to load up on PPP funds. And as a bank, that was important too, because we didn't know how the funding was going to work. We didn't know if we were going to be incentivized or not. We didn't know if we were using the right loan documentation or not, the right authorization forms or not. But the bank just made that commitment to small businesses in our community and was willing to take those risks. And we were able to use our technology to expedite that. And to be honest, a couple nights there, I was afraid of what we were putting on our balance sheet and how I was going to fund it. And if the SBA was going to renege on their guarantees later because we didn't use the right loan docs or what have you. But it all worked out great. Again, lucky. But the neat part about our technology stack that we have now, and why I love helping small business owners, because one, they're nimble and they have a keen desire to survive, and they're very creative and they're entrepreneurial in their stack. So if a bank can meet them 50-50, right, through that PPP process, we met every single one of our customers' demand that asked for a PPP loan. So that ended up being about 1,042 loans, the number. And then we did an additional 2,000 PPP loans for non-customers of the bank in our markets and through one of our fintech partners. And in our market, those non-customers, Coastal normally opens about 250, 300 checking accounts a month. And that's a lot for us. Wow, good month. Well, in April, May, and June, we averaged opening over 500 accounts a day there for a period of time. Totally about 5,000 checking accounts we opened, and we did them all via our digital channels. So our online account opening for business owners. Now, fast forward one step further, we're able to disperse their PPP funds. We're able to onboard them as a new customer to the bank, right? Our challenge as a bank is to meet the rest of their needs through this pandemic. And so we continue to use our delivery sources, including our branches and our teams, but as well as our online capacity to do their lending through some fintech partnerships that we've built that we can pre-credit score these folks based on the data we have. So going back to Neokova's comment, Lindsay's comments about, we see ourselves much more as data managers now than bankers in some cases, and utilizing that data to meet a customer's known and unknown need over this year. And so we've really been able to meet their expectations and exceed them in many, many cases during this pandemic, because we started multiple years ago in building this ability to talk to customers in alternative measures. So it's been fun, exciting, challenging, and rewarding. And this is probably not to be happy and truly a sad year, and a lot of people in America in horrible situations, but it's probably going to be one of Coastal's shining moments and one of our best years, recognizing that that's tough to say, that there's a lot of pain out there.
Well, and I do appreciate that, and we know from the ICBA's perspective that in this tough time, you guys as community bankers have done an amazing. Lindsay used the word that I've been using, heroic effort to serve your communities, and I think it is something that each and every one of you should and well deserved pride in what every one of your organizations has been able to do. And so as we think about, we're approaching the end of the year, and many organizations, bankers listening to this are starting to think about their strategic planning and budgeting for next year. And now we look back in the rearview mirror, which isn't really that far in the rearview mirror. What are, from your perspectives, a number of the lessons learned, things that you did that you see being important to leverage and fold into your plans going into next year that other bankers and small businesses should be thinking about? And Jill, I'll toss that to you to start off with.
For us, the number one is accessibility, to ensure that we are where the small business needs to be when they need us, as well as anticipating those needs. And what we found through this experience, especially looking at things nationally and through PPP, is that a lot of our minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses didn't have access to the financial resources that made them aware of what even programs are available or allow them the position to be able to take advantage of them. So we want to be very intentionally present in all areas of our community, whether that's digitally or in person or a combination of both. We also see Eric mentioned kind of luck is being prepared and making sure that we are prepared for what we really embrace this role from the very beginning of saying, okay, the medical community is rushing today to address the medical needs of this virus. Our responsibility is to be the economic first responders and be able to be the avenue in which these resources get to the businesses that are so much in need. But then there's this ongoing need to make sure that we're elevating our communities and our small businesses and providing those resources to them, not just in a time of crisis, but sustainable. And to do that, we really need to make sure that our workflows are as efficient as possible. We stood up online account openings. We always had that from a personal standpoint, but not business, but we got that done. There's a lot of things that we hastily kind of applied tourniquets, in the triage of the crisis that we are now focusing on. How do you now perfect and scale these different initiatives, and then ensure that again, we're just constantly evaluating. The agility is so important. Technology, we sometimes view as community bankers as something we partner with one fintech and we check the box on our innovation, or we bought this new core or this new product off the shelf, and that's made us more of an innovative organization. In fact, it's really not the technology that makes us innovative. It's incorporating that technology and then utilizing it so then you can be agile enough to meet the very dynamic changing needs of our communities and our small businesses. And that's when we truly achieve that innovative culture, organization, and industry that we're all striving for. So, I think it's just constantly reevaluating, perfecting, scaling, eliminating what doesn't work, and then leaving ourselves available so that whenever that new idea comes, that we can try it, we can lean into it. If we fell forward, and then we try the night thing. We're really focused on that the purpose is the progress, that we don't have a specific goal to achieve X by October next year. I mean, we have some of those goals, but it's pretty rare because we really don't know with such a changing environment what October of next year is going to look like. We just need to always be in the position to be able to react quickly and be able to serve the needs of our customers and our communities well.
And Lindsay, does that translate into highlighting some new features, some new capabilities for Neocova?
No, I think it definitely does. And there's there's so many things when you look forward. I think one of the key lessons, we don't know what we don't know. And certainly none of us expected to be having this conversation around COVID and really seeing the acceleration. But for us, in terms of new products per se, and the way we look at this, COVID has really crystallized things that we had already known. So we knew digital adoption was happening, even with groups that were laggard. This forced the hand. And so there's been robust digital adoption, both by our community financial institutions, as well as the end consumers, both business and traditional. But with this increased volume of digital adoption, there have been, greater risks that have risen to the surface. And so for us, looking at new products and what the future looks like, it is really for us around cybersecurity and keeping at the forefront of not only what Neocova does and what our products do, but also safeguarding our institutions. So, as we've highlighted, there's the need to have an updated technology stack. So you are able to be agile and nimble and respond and continue to add offerings and services to best serve your small business customers. But it's also, increasing the risk for your institution. So, I think, we talked about FinCEN. There's been so many things in the news. You look at all different types of numbers. One model suggested, this was prior to COVID, that there was a 300% increase in attempted fraudulent payment transactions this year. Now, post-COVID, I've heard 700% increase, which is pretty darn shocking. So, I think this is a cautionary tale for, our community institutions that aren't as progressive or as forward thinking, is that it is time to look at your back office so you can minimize your risk and you can protect yourself and continue to focus on, what Jill has so eloquently said repeatedly on this panel is focus on your customers, deliver what they need. To Eric's point, don't wait, be as forward thinking as possible. If you had the opportunity to hear Eric speak before, he has a great story where he talks about the future of his bank and the decisions they had to make, and they've stayed the course, and it has positioned them well in our current environment to rise to the occasion. So for Neocova, it is, continuing down our path that we have with our existing product set, but also reminding our customers and those really in the industry that cybersecurity is something that's incredibly important. Monitoring your fraud and looking at ways to automate that so you can focus on really being there for the community, being there for our small businesses is just paramount for us.
And thank you. And Eric, with the challenges that everybody has highlighted here, has this caused you to reprioritize some of those initiatives?
No, I mean, really not. Again, this is a 15 to 25 year strategy, and we still nimble enough to pivot, move, help immediately, but to maintain the posture of where we're going and what we have to do to remain independent. I would just add one more aspect to this conversation that I'm sure I know for a fact Jill's gone through and Lindsay is helping Coastal go through, but is to engage your regulatory bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And they are becoming proactive. They are getting up to speed on technology and how that helps the community banks. ICBA is a leader. So engaging ICBA, and Jill mentioned the accelerator that y'all have in Little Rock that I got the pleasure to be a part of as well, and to meet the fintechs that are coming up to support community banks and how ICBA is leveraging that. So engaging your regulators, engaging your association, engaging the fintechs directly there is a very nice community that is circling the wagons around community banks to make sure that we have the right to remain independent and that we can fight the stream for the next 5, 10, 15 years, even when there are immediate fires. And the only thing that I'd say that truly we're pivoting on is that we're trying desperately to diversify the earnings stream just because of margin. COVID has caused the Fed to react appropriately and lower rates, and now they've come out and said they're going to lower rates long term. And so that's going to shrink the community banking model of being dependent on margin to a large degree. And so that's the only thing that we are doubling down or emphasizing is fee income based businesses as well as scale. Immediately to answer your question, Charles. But anyways.
Well, look, I have a great pleasure to work with many of you and see the amazing work you've all done. I think when we look at the totality of this session and we think about the small business economy and how fintech and community banks have come together, you guys are shining stars for that effort. We know from the ICBA where there's a healthy community bank, there's a healthy community, and vice versa. And your efforts have been great, greatly appreciated across the country. I want to thank each and every one of you for sharing your thoughts today. This has been all my pleasure getting a chance to spend time with you guys. I'm very blessed, and your markets, your customers, the businesses that you serve are very blessed as well. I truly appreciate it. I hope each and every one of you have a great rest of the day, and for everybody watching the session, a great rest of FinTech South. Thank you to TAG. Thank you to Deluxe for sponsoring this. And thank you, Jill, Lindsay, Eric, for graciously giving of your time today. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. It's a pleasure.
Everybody have a good day.
All right, you guys have a good day. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.